my name's Rena, and this is my mom, Debbie, and we are the Philosophical Goobs today. Goobz, because there's two. Today we want to talk about a little bit about age. It's kind of a you'll see what the topic is, but like it's mostly about like kind of breaking down, not breaking down, but like being myopic, like kind of being like in your
headspace.
Yeah, in your own space or headspace, because I've noticed that a lot of people that are like I guess generations that are around the same age, like mostly have friends that are all like the same age and not like outside or like across generations. And I've heard some like talk about like, oh, like maybe well, you hear it with like not parliament, that's not us, but like you hear that with like Congress and stuff, where they say a certain age you should be forced to retire. I kind of agree with that part, but like what we're talking about more so is like maybe in like the general workforce, and maybe like about like because I mean I can understand it to a degree, but like that's all about efficacy or efficacy. Gosh, I can never say that word that bad.
Yeah, well, and it's like the generational points of view, the myopic points of view.
That's what we were talking about. Because of efficacy, like, by all means, yeah, if someone isn't capable of doing their position, or just in general, like, can't do their stuff, like, with Congress, and, like, maybe, like, super archaic stuff that they're pushing sometimes, but, like, what we're mostly talking about is points of view in conversation, or just points of view of, like, challenging thought when you're talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because a lot of people that I talk to only talk, like I said, to their generation. And if we want to make a claim that like we don't want history to repeat itself, then I think it would be valuable to talk to those that have lived life more so, theoretically.
Yeah, that have lived history and may have some input. Doesn't mean what they say is what you should do, but it could shed some light on looking at situations with a broader lens, and understanding, go, get another point of view instead of preaching to the choir. If your group, and that doesn't matter what generation you're with, it just happens because you have things in common with your generation, and it's easy to communicate, and a lot of times you think alike, or at least along the same lines, and then you get these intergenerational situations, and it's like, oh god, these old people, god, they think like this or they think like that. Oh, these young kids are just so it's the typical thing, and the generation gap.
And it's kind of ironic that they're both kind of complaining about similar things,
exactly,
but it's just like different age,
shoes on the other foot.
And I was thinking about that mostly like because if you look at like ancient Greece, not that they had it all right, because like yeah, no, not everything, but like some aspects, yes, I think, in my opinion. And like, for example, they had the kind of philosophy where like a lot of people had different ideologies or different practices, but they lived amongst each other. And I think that's something that's missing a little bit, but also not really, but I'll explain further, like in our society, is because I've noticed a trend too, where people usually are only friends with people that agree with them, or that have the same exact mindset as them, as far as like whether it be, I see it mostly in politics, that's why I mentioned that as an example.
As of late,
but it's a lot of different avenues. It's that's a trendy one that like everyone is kind of
belief system, or hobby interests, work environments. I mean, you make friends with certain people at work, and people just gravitate to each other for those reasons, and it makes it easy to communicate.
Well, and so many people lost friends and family members on not only political opinions, but I had heard a friend that had spoke about it, is on their like Instagram story, that's why I mention it. They spoke about how someone had unfriended them just because they said like F Elon Musk.
Oh yeah,
which is wild, because that's like a corporate
your whole
guy.
Like your whole friendship or your association is based on what?
And that seems so fragile too. Like if just at the slightest disagreements, like you throw someone out the metaphorical window.
Which tells me there really wasn't much there to begin with. And it was all a farce. Yeah, that's, and it's sad because I know a lot of that happened during COVID. A lot of that happened during political situations, elections.
Like high tension type.
Yeah, exactly. And they use that as a catalyst to just...
And I also understand, like, I understand if it gets to a realm of ethics or morals, because I think that is something that is fundamentally like important to us as humans, and like that makes sense. Like if someone's violating an ethical principle or like moral that you have, that's totally different in my opinion versus like an opinion on someone like Elon Musk.
Right.
Like, okay, like, well, and again, we're not talking about the ethics of his practice or anything like that. She just said like F him,
like
you know, like
anything
general,
about him,
general statement,
yeah, it's out, just like,
and
you
also
know.
why would you take it that okay, that's a different conversation.
Yeah,
Why would you take it that hard?
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, but nonetheless, like the thing is that number one, by cutting off people just cold like that, you're not creating a space for critical thinking and engagement. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that you're supposed to set out to change someone's mind, but at least food for thought. And if you can have a conversation with someone that's completely opposite of you in your views on a point, and you can kind of get down to the rationale behind their thinking, a lot of times like you can at least have someone, whether it be yourself or them, walk away with like food for thought and think about some stuff.
Right.
And the thing is, if you don't have maybe the patience or the tolerance to come about it in a way that's not going to be confrontational, then that's where it gets kind of ugly and people just throw them out, or you know, just don't want to see them or talk to them anymore. But I mean, it's breaking up like family and friends.
Well, and it's being able to have dialogue and have discussion, not argument and casting people aside. I mean, well, and that's when the emotions get in the way. That's the problem.
Yeah.
People are trying to engage purely based on emotion, and that is a dead end street for failure. It's never going to, you know, like Rena said earlier, you know, you're not trying to change someone's mind or make them think like you or vice versa. It's just, you know, discussion, open dialogue. That's all you're supposed to be doing, not passing judgment on somebody and just based on, oh, well, they think this guy's great and he's a total loon or whatever your view is. And then, well, you must be a loon too, and I don't have time for you. You know, it's like, wait, what?
Such a hasty like generalization to make about somebody, especially if you don't know the rationale that they're coming at it with. Because like, what if it's just like an absolutely niche kind of personal thing is the reason why they like a certain thing?
Yeah.
And like maybe they don't know about other stuff, or maybe they just, you know, you have, especially when you look at the whole scandal that had to do with Hollywood that's still going on about the whole Dan Schneider and like Nickelodeon
Wizards of Waverly. That's going on for a while.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And then you still have people that are hardcore into those shows, even though it's pretty open and available online that all the kids were doing drugs, half of them were underage, there's sexual stuff going on set, you know, and you have all these kind of, honestly, like really immoral things that go around that, but people get so, we've talked about this a lot, they get so attached to the identity of a celebrity.
Yes, they get attached to the identity of a celebrity, like what part they play. Most people, they'll see, you know, out here in LA.
My character, that you were me.
Like, they start calling that person the character name like it's a real person.
Like Danny to John Travolta. It's not Grease. Like
exactly, and I think that's the big fallacy there. That it's this fantasy that people buy into, and it's real to them, and then they are like latched onto it, and it's sad because the actor's like, dude, I'm a person,
and they don't even know you too, like, and you don't even know them. That's the crazy part.
No.
And I had talked with Mom about this like quite a few times before, because I was trying to get at the root of why, for example, we'll take Drake as the artist, who like has obviously been very outed for being minor inclined, and so it's interesting to see when someone is just blatantly refusing like knowledge about the person.
Yeah.
And I was trying to understand why they're taking it so personally, because it's not them, it's literally another person. And also on top of that, they don't know that person's personal life. And there's no problem with, I mean, you know, there's no problem with saying that like you enjoy their music but you don't like them as a person, or you know, at least to acknowledge that they have some hate, some shady dealings.
You know, they're flawed. They're like, deeply flawed.
I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be popular to come out and say, hey, I really enjoy P. Diddy's music but not him, but like but that's, I mean, I don't enjoy his music, but if someone did, at least you could respect the fact that they know who the person is or can see that, but also can separate the artist from the art.
Well, and that's it. You can hate love the art but not like what the artist represents or has done.
Yeah.
And I'm not vested in that person, but their work is great, like musically or whatever. Yeah, because people are flawed, and some flaws are deal breakers. And some people get really deeply moved, like, no, like what was it? When the whole football thing with the NFL, when the NFL was with the knee, taking the knee and all that, people were burning their jerseys and saying, I no longer, identify with this team. I hate the NFL. I'm getting rid of my season ticket. I mean, people
went hardcore
on that. It was either black or white. It was either, you're in, you're out. And some of these things are that serious to these people. And again, that was taking an emotional stance on a situation
and a personal identity.
Exactly. And that shows me how vested certain individuals are to certain things like sports and stuff. It hurt them that deeply that they were so appalled by that action that was taken. And agree or disagree, it was like, wow, you're not even thinking. They just reacted. And maybe later on, as it went on for a while, people were thinking and said, nope, I still feel the same. And then, and it's their prerogative to do that. But it was really, that's what really got my attention was these, especially on social media platforms, people are going on Instagram or they're doing TikToks and they're, I'm burning my jersey, and then have a bonfire going in their backyard, and they'd be burning all their memorabilia that they collected for decades.
And it's like not hurting anyone but yourself, because it's money you're literally throwing out.
Seriously, I would at least sell this stuff.
Just
and
sell
make
it on
some
eBay.
bank, and change my hobby. At least I had a few bucks.
Yeah.
But
here's what I think of you, and you just show a really aggressive click on eBay.
Yeah, and I still got to pay on that one. Yeah. So, it really isn't it's not the smartest moves.
Well, and when I was getting to the bottom of my investigation on it, I also was thinking that the reason that people react in the way they do, especially with like musicians and movies and things like that, and I think it's because a lot of us connect with those types of media, especially when you're having a rough time, or maybe you don't want to feel alone, or maybe like you're down in the dumps, or maybe you're even excitedly celebrating something, or like a breakup, or just anything that's on the spectrum of emotion. And I think it's because when someone in like our society like attacks an artist or something, what happens is I think the individual has attached their identity with like a certain song. And to them, that song represents directly them. So then when you're attacking the artist, they think of that song and that emotional connection that they have to that, whether it's subconscious or conscious. And then they immediately get defensive because now it seems like you're attacking them.
And then it makes it personal.
Yeah. And it's like, that's an illusion. Like, that's a piece of art that you chose to, or not chose, were inspired to be attached to.
Right.
And that's not you.
You have to be able to separate that. I mean, I have tons of songs and memories like from way back, and it's like that, deal where you'll hear a song out of nowhere and that memory will immediately come right here, and good or bad, most of the time, for me it's good. But if that artist was found to be some kind of creep or something, that's not the first thing that pops in my brain.
Like the Mamas and the Papas, I'm gonna drop that, because that one, when I learned about that one, I was like, oh,
that was a freaking mess.
Especially because the songs are so like,
I know,
like very like Woodstock,
very very
hippie,
folksy, and then you find out all the clandestine weirdness that went on there, and those people are so broken. And oh gosh. But I'll hear a song. Well, and that was one of my favorite songs, was California Dreamin'.
Oh my god, it's a good song.
From way back in the 70s, that was like my song. I don't relate their experiences that music makes me feel a certain way and sparks a memory that has nothing to do with their personal situations. Now, later on, it might spark, oh yeah, remember that happened, blah, blah, but that's like down the road. And it's old news, and it's not my story. It's their story. And so, but their music was beautiful and timeless, and for me, it brings back a flood of good memories. So that's where I lock into it. I don't lock myself into any of their personal lives or anything reported in the news, their drama. That's their stuff.
Yeah. And the art is almost like you have the artist and then you have the consumer, and then the art is kind of like this middle thing that I don't picture as, it's a part of them, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's something that's outside of them too, in my opinion.
Well, because they shared it with the universe, and so the universe is privy to the music, and unfortunately, being in the limelight, so is their private lives to a point, I think, and that's the tough part.
I also have like something you reminded me of just really quick. Did you hear? I have to like deep dive it, so like don't take my word on it. But like, I mean, kind of whatever. But like,
yeah,
it was,
we gotta vet it.
what happened is they said that they found a signal that came from somewhere in the universe.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, NASA did, or
yeah.
What?
And so I have to deep dive that because I heard it about 3 weeks ago, if not like a month ago, and I was like, and I was like, where was that from? And so like I wanted to look into it, but I had school and stuff.
Mars Attacks. I got Slim Whitman.
Mars Attacks. She gave me a bunch of records, and the top one of them was Slim Whitman. If you don't know who that is, watch the movie Mars Attacks.
Yeah, look up Slim Whitman. He's a yodeler.
A pleasure to the ears.
Very high pitch. Oh
my gosh.
Makes that movie though.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
We won't spoil the movie, but like
yeah. Anyways.
But yeah, so it's interesting to see what people adopt as like their own.
Yes, and at what level. Like the reality is it's a song. It relates to a situation in your life or
and you,
feeling.
And you relate it to that feeling, and it's like so defensible because it's so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like it's such a vulnerable thing to feel, and then you have that attached to it, and so then I can see why when someone goes, oh, they suck, or like, oh, look at them as a person, oh, well, like, no, you're wrong, blah, 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 that's all media or whatever, and it's like, dude, there's like hard evidence, like,
oh yeah, exactly.
There's text messages, there's video, pictures,
there's proof,
audio.
This is not good. But you know, chances are you got connected to their music or art before any of this was known, and so that'd be like me acting like those NFL people going, oh, I hate all your records and I'm gonna burn them all, or you know what.
And also like if you,
what's that gonna do?
Yeah, and if you like history or anything like that, like this is just the current blip in it. So like to condemn an entire franchise or an entire thing based off of like a current state is just like, that's who's in charge of it right now. Like if you were like a Cowboys fan or what, a 49ers whatever fan, like I don't see, if you were a hardcore fan dying in the wood, then like why would you throw away or burn everything? Like that doesn't make very much sense to me.
Because there's all kinds of seasons and ebbs and flows to those franchises, those situations, life. You know, 1 minute your life rocks, and then the next year you're doing great. You're gonna throw it all in because you're having a major, you know, bump in the road. It goes on, and you ride it out. Same with these things, like you said, with the NFL. Now that's like a past. Does anybody even talk about it anymore?
Seriously, that's, you know, I didn't really think about that.
We have a very short attention span when it comes to it's like, you know, magpie.
No kidding. Last week's news is literally a
seriously
thing.
Shiny squirrel. You know, seriously, it's our attention spans are not very long. I think the more we're online, it gets shorter.
Yeah,
no.
Like people don't remember. There was a saying I did read like a week or two ago, and it said, "Are we forgiving or are we just forgetting?" I think it's forgetting because like a lot of stuff that people will talk about, I'm just like,
and there's so much that we're being bombarded with on a daily basis, minute by minute, because of this stuff and this social media that we didn't have. Yeah, the technology is at such a level that it's coming at us fast and furious as much as we want to expose ourselves to it. So, yeah, how are you going to retain all that? Your brains can only hold so much, and it's got to file it or get rid of it. So, again, I think you forget a lot because you're not keeping it in there and getting it, you know, set in. You're just flying by.
And I also wanted to throw in something because she reminded me of a saying that I've said to myself before, and I think it's helpful for others, especially when it comes to this idea, because you reminded me you were kind of circling around this word nostalgia that I like was thinking about, and I was remembering how like certain people, you've reached out to them or they reached out to you, and it's mostly like sometimes out of nostalgia. And there's two things that I think that someone should never ever function under and make an action under, and that's nostalgia or pity. And like, because
too much booze.
Well, that too. Okay, I thought that was a given though. Like, don't get drunk and drunked out. You all know about that. So like, but like nostalgia, because you're only remembering the good times in your memory. Think of like a breakup, selective. And they say unless it was like traumatic, that you'll forget the bad times and you'll remember the good times and romanticize it, and then you reach out and call somebody. So, like, number one, don't function under nostalgia because that was a memory that was in the past. Like, you can appreciate the past and you can love it for what it was genuinely in the experience, but don't function under it because I promise you, you will go back and you will remember exactly why you're not around those people
Yes,
anymore.
and how many times have we done that with a friend or an old, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and yeah, you'll get nostalgic, go, oh, I haven't talked to so-and-so for 10 years.
And then it's worse than the first time. And,
and then you're like, oh, now I know why I left this situation, yeah, you're not in that situation for a reason, and so maybe think of that before you reach for a phone or a text or something.
And be like, is this what I truly want, or is it that I'm remembering the good times?
I'm remembering the good times. Yeah, exactly.
Because I promise you it's remembering the good times or curious.
Yeah,
that's
you're like, I wonder what he's doing now. Who cares?
Yeah. There's 4 billion people out there. You can go
take
a walk and get a new friend. You can almost literally like close your eyes and bump into someone new and
depending on where you live. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and maybe don't close. Yeah,
don't wander the highway blind. Come on, literally go play on the freeway like Dad used to say.
Yeah, I know. I haven't heard someone say that in a long time.
Well, that's because people don't talk like that anymore.
Go play on the freeway.
Yeah,
oh my God,
that's an older generation. Yeah, like get out of here, kid. Go play on the freeway. I mean,
oh man, that's
and
funny.
if we took them literal, I would be dead.
Yeah, of course not. Like
the kids are like, whatever.
Oh yeah, and then pity you don't want to function under either because number one, would you like it if someone hit you up because they pity you? Like no, that would suck. Like that sucks. So like no one wants to be pitied. So like, and if they do, then I would be a little sussed out about that because what are you trying to get?
That's like old John Hughes movie or something. Like the Pretty in Pinks and stuff, where the girl that wasn't popular, and then the jock asked her to prom, and it was a joke, like a pity prank, and it's so mean.
That's so weird because like I always wonder when I was watching those growing up, I'm like, who does this? Because like my high school never did it.
No, never.
Is it like the Midwest? No offense, anyone that's watching from the Midwest. Is it like a Midwest thing or is it like a?
I don't know because I mean that's just
because who does that and like who can do that and then go home and be like I feel great like
yeah and then go keep dating the cheerleader and they're laughing at the situation
that's so
like
wild.
It's their best entertainment.
And also
TV,
that's like
man.
also pathetic too because it's like you literally are that creative that like you just decided ruining someone else's like emotional state is like the height of your intelligence or like your not
your
intelligence
confidence
but
must be really down because if you've got to make this person feel like utter crap and humiliate them, that speaks volumes
so
where you find yourself.
Yeah, it always perplexes me a little bit, but also not really because humans are weird. But like, it always kind of makes me go, I gotta learn about your background or something. If they're willing to do stuff like
Red
that.
Flag.
Yeah, because I've seen it have I seen it in person? Hold on. Not something that severe.
No, that's just.
I've like seen like pranks that were harmless. But not anything that was like destructive or permanent or like dangerous or stuff like that. Like I just don't understand why someone would be okay with that.
Yeah.
And how do they not think ahead? Like, oh, we're gonna play this prank on someone that has firecrackers or something in it. Like, why don't people think of everything that could happen?
No, because they're right here.
And also
they're just thinking of the instant gratification of the actual action, and they're not thinking domino effect down the road. Like they could get burnt, they could fall back, they could hit their head, they could do all these things that could be awful.
And I don't understand how we're not thinking of that. Like honestly, what do you have to think about all day? Like no offense.
What's the end game here? Is this person going to end up in the ER or what?
Is it like because everyone's watching too much TikTok, you can't like no one can tell cause and effect? Like
I mean that's why say guys. Mostly guys do these crazy tricks and have this adrenaline sports and stuff. They're just doing stuff.
And you know what's ironic is now that you mention that, granted I only asked this to like 3 guys that are my friends, not any more, but maybe I will ask more people now. Yeah. But all the guys that I talked to said they don't think about things in the future. They only think about right now.
In the moment.
Yeah. And I was like, what? So you're not thinking like what happens next year? And they're like, no. And I was like, yeah. And as a girl and as like other girls I know, like we think like
yeah.
But I think it's
that's why I always forget my phone.
But I think that's also because the innate part of girls needing to think for their safety. So I think that's why we think and analyze and overthink because we're constantly looking out for things that can hurt us potentially. Not that it will, but potentials. and therefore
Well,
like
yeah,
we
we
plan
gotta-
in the future.
We
I
got to
think,
look for
a little bit.
scenarios. We got to look for outcomes. We
Mhm.
have to look for.
Unless we're just having a bad time, which means something traumatic happened, and then
Yeah.
girls don't care and they're kind of doing whatever.
And then we're living like guys.
Yeah,
evidently.
and that's the thing too. I talked to somebody a while ago, and it was a conversation that I had that was kind of, but it was talking and speaking of generations too, seeing the difference in that, because I was lucky enough to know a lot of gentlemen that were older when I was growing up, and they were always kind and smart and like and partially
guys.
intuitive and like very nurturing.
Mhm.
And this guy that I had ran across, he was like probably in his like 60s or something like that, and he was saying how we were talking about parties, and he was talking about parties in the 80s that had basketball players or whatever, and how a girl would just go there and like you know what she's looking for, and it's like if you have one girl at a party with 20 guys, I was like, you should probably think first, why is she here? Like, why is she putting herself in that danger? Like, granted, I know that it's not arguably the natural inclination of a guy to go, oh, why is she in this dangerous situation? But maybe if they're drunk and like kind of selfish, then they're going, I can get her or something.
Well, and depending on how she's behaving or carrying herself at the party, if she's getting drunk and flirting and hanging on guys, that's one thing. But if she's there and she's...
But also just to see self-destructive patterns. That's my main gripe, is like, granted, like a girl can party, she can do whatever she wants, you know? Yeah. But you can kind of tell, I think, honestly.
Girls travel in packs.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have even an inkling of like awareness, then I think you could easily tell the difference between she's going through something or she's here to party. You know, and like she said, girls travel in packs just out of safety. So a single girl doing something by herself and being kind of careless with her own health and stuff, like something's happening.
Yeah, especially if she doesn't really know anybody there. She's just there and seems to, you know, and she's trying to kind of
traumatized or dangerous.
Yeah, right. She's looking to frame somebody, or she's just been in a situation that's not cool.
Yeah, you know? But I don't know why that made me think of it. But I was thinking generationally. And I was thinking, like, yeah, but the thing is, I've known a lot of guys that were really nice and kind. So, like, having that voice for, like,
that's just that
portion, you know, that part of, you know, a whole generation has a bunch of different aspects. Just like our generation has a bunch of different aspects of, like, you know, not so cool people and cool people. So
yeah, I think you have like
you can't get rid of them. Like no,
you
can't get rid of the ones
humans. We're all different and flawed
bizarre.
And weird and stupid and smart and
bizarre is kind of good a little bit if it's good bizarre.
Yeah. Bizarre, not bazaar. Go shop at a bazaar.
But and then also like the verbiage, so like the words that we use to speak and stuff like that. Like I noticed that when you speak, and that's why like I think it's important to keep different realms of people. Like if you have the same kind of realm, you speak the same way. Like when I was working somewhere that won't be named, like that shall not be mentioned, like I noticed I would come home and tell my mom, like, I feel like I'm getting dumber. No offense. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say it like that, but I feel like I'm literally being dimmed because the way that people would talk were just so. I don't know how to explain it.
It happens a lot because I mean I experienced something similar. Not so much in the way I spoke, but the way I was acting and whatever. But yeah, if you're around a certain group or whatever for any length of time, and like in your case it was work, so you're around them a lot of your time because you're at work a lot. And then you are the company you keep.
Well, and I want to explain the dumber things. I think it's a little harsh to say that word per se.
Simpler.
Not simpler. It was like TikTok slang. Like that's how I was talking, was TikTok slang, and that's how I was talking all the time. Not in my other like realms, because that's why I'm saying it's important to have other realms, because I have an academic realm. Obviously, I go to school, and then I have another job that's not like that job was. So it kept me more so like, as in psychology we call it code switching. So it's like when you talk to different groups, you speak different to talk the language, honestly, and to talk the culture. Yeah. And so I was just like wondering, like looking at this and going, dude, like if you don't have another group of people to talk to, much less a different age range, which I think involves kind of challenging yourself too, because they have a different way of speaking, they have a different vernacular where you won't use the normative words that you're going to use around just your generation.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, because I do that all the time, because especially when I was younger, I'd be around my friends and you'd be yucking it up, especially if you're partying or something and you're cussing and dropping F-bombs, and that's just your way of speak with each other, and you're casual and relaxed, and everything. And then I'd be around my parents, and if I would drop an F-bomb, I'd get a slap in the mouth by my mom. That's all of 4'10".
Mm-hmm.
So, I would clean it up, and I was ladylike, and we'd go to different events and things, and I would carry my, and I wouldn't talk that way at work,
Mm-hmm.
in an office, in a corporate environment. And, so you become a chameleon.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to do that, or you're going to be a big mess.
Well, and I'm gonna retract kind of half of what I meant. I didn't mean necessarily dumb. I meant more so, and I think that jargon comes more from old school academic kind of jargon is what they would call that. But more so, I mean slang. Is like I was talking like street slang.
Are you talking like they used to say dumbing it down?
Yeah, dumbing it down is
making it
is
simple.
What I meant. Not like you're stupid. Not like that at all. That's not what I mean at all.
Making the verbiage simple.
Yeah.
Like simple conversation or whatever.
But yeah, and I find that more, and that's the thing too. Like I said, I think I said this earlier too. Like if we're worried about history repeating itself, talk to someone who's lived through part of that history.
Yeah, they're part of the history.
Yeah.
Get it firsthand or secondhand from them because they were there when it happened. Like I was telling Rena last night, because we were discussing what topic we were going to be doing today, and I says, yeah, because when you think about it, like the generation before mine is World War II. These people went through the Depression, World Wars, Korean War, and all this stuff, all these major changes in history, and they're almost all gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's any of them left at the tail end of that age, which
like 102 or something like that.
Or they're high 90s, so they're going to be gone, and pretty soon anything from that portion of history is going to be purely in books or memories or things that other people have been told. Is going to be, third hand.
Also, I'm not a Tom Hanks fan at all, but if you ever are into like World War II stuff, Band of Brothers is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
It was on HBO, I think it was.
Yeah, that is a good movie.
But no, it's a TV show.
Oh, it's a TV?
Mm-hmm. I think you're thinking of Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, when you said Tom Hanks.
Yeah, because he was in it, but he directed or something like that. Band of Brothers, and it's only because at the beginning of each episode he has actual World War II vets that are talking. Okay. Yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah. It's really like. It's one of the most realistic, I think, accounts for like, and they have, I think they do a different one. It's called Pacific Rim. I don't know if it's called, or The Pacific. I'm sorry, The Pacific, and it has to do with, I think, paratroopers.
Oh, okay.
Or is it naval? Whatever. And then they also have Masters of Air, which is the air one, and then The Pacific, I think, is naval or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds like naval.
Band of Brothers is really
interesting.
Good.
Okay.
But cool. And that's the thing too. If we want to learn like recipes, ailment treatments, or just overall life experience that you could maybe like find in common, like that's going to be lost if we don't utilize like other generations for knowledge and stuff like that.
Well, and people can start with their own families, like your generation can be, if they still have grandparents, spend time with them. Man, they got stories. It's all old people want to do, sit and talk about the good old days.
Well, and I think part of that practice,
good information.
And I think part of that practice breaks down that intimidation that people can feel, specifically with interviews. Like interviews, whether you're trying to get into a college, get a new job, get this. If you are used to talking to people in different generations, I think it takes that intimidation away, because you can think of them as coming from that mindset. You know what that mindset looks like a little bit, or could look like. And I think if you find something that's like, about it, or that you find like, what is that doing, or why do you think that? Just ask, like, just be like, oh, like, what makes you think that? And then just hear, like, how someone speaks and, like, where their mind's coming from.
Well, and people got to learn to not broad brushstroke a whole generation based on whatever they've heard, been told, or witnessed themselves, because that instance doesn't define a whole generation or all those types of people or that age of person. Maybe that person was an a-hole, or maybe this person's super sweet, but they're not all like that, And so it's just having the intelligence to know that, and know that people are people. And like you were around all age groups growing up. You're around adults mostly. And I think that's where you got your introduction to talking to different groups and stuff, and adults. And you were always treated very, grown up. Yeah. Even when you were a kid. But then also you responded in life. You didn't act like a little brat or, we don't want that kid around, I mean, you were welcomed at all of the grown-up events and dinners, and I was raised that way too. That from a very young age, I went to all the places with my parents and adult environments, and I knew how to act and behave. I didn't behave like a banshee.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it too.
We need to talk about that one time too, like maybe next time or another time, like kids.
Oh dang.
Dude, I mean not dude, because you're my mom, but like,
No, you
sometimes
call
I
me
say
dude
that
all
to
the
her.
time.
Sometimes I say that to her, especially.
I
like,
just laugh. I'm like, okay, because
Well, 'cause
dudes
if
one one and cool. That you still use those.
Well, because I always like it's like when you something's like unbelievably like, dude, can you believe this? And like it's just like because some of them are running around screaming, or when they're on their tablets the whole time, and it's like you're frying their brain, dude. And like
seriously,
the first years of life are so like if you like I took a psychology of like adolescence or something like that. I think that's what it was called, but it was babies to like adolescent children.
Yeah.
And like the amount of like connections in your brain that you're making in those first years of life is astronomical. And to where like there's like fine motor skills, and so fine motor skills are like when you have a kid tie their shoe, like little things that you like mess with. If you don't develop that by a certain age, you don't have it. Like you don't have it.
It's like you gotta learn to walk again.
Yeah, and it's no, but never you can't.
You
can't learn it ever because it's not in the developmental. Same with like language. Like that's what happened to Jeannie, the feral child. That's like a famous case in psychology. It's one where her parents, sad story, look it up on your own. Because we're running out of time. But like, but basically they locked her away and like she was treated like an animal.
Right.
Worse than an animal even.
Yeah,
and then she was tied to a chair or whatever, and like, and then when they end up rescuing her, she couldn't speak because the thing is, you only have a certain age range where you learn to speak, and she missed it, so she couldn't speak. She couldn't learn to speak. Wild.
That is.
Sorry to end on that, but like.
And on that note, have a nice day.
But I hope we gave you some food for thought. Next time we will have a new topic that we want to discuss coming up, but not next time.
Feral children.
Well, maybe feral children, and I'm going to get her to talk about Play-Doh a little bit. She doesn't know that much right now. I'm going to give her a book.
Read the book.
And it's I think it'll be interesting because it comes from a Christian perspective of how you handle it, or not handle it, but how you
perceive it.
Perceive it. There you go, and understand it versus a philosophy person, which
interesting.
Yeah. So thank
food
you
for
thought. We should have just called it food for thought, to be honest. But thank you for watching the Philosophical Goobs, and have a good one.
Bye.